Oh, hello. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Star Wars Shatterpoint. And in particular, we're going to review every single unit in the Separatist tag. Buckle up. So, what is this? So, for those of you that are familiar with my Kill Team content, I do faction reviews, right? Where I will review all the units in a particular kill team. That's really easy because a kill team is like this contained thing, and while you have some options, there's not infinity options. But I want to do that kind of content for Shatterpoint as well. I know that I haven't finished all the kill team faction reviews, and I will get to them. But Shatterpoint famously has no factions. It sort of does. It has a tag system. You're not obligated to match your tags, okay? But there are loads of synergies, and you'll see some examples as we go through here of why you might want to match your tags. Now, this video is about the Separatists, which are the main sort of tag that I play in at the moment when I play Shatterpoint. For those of you that aren't totally sure what a Separatist is, okay, these are the bad guys from the prequel movies. So you Count Dooku, General Grievous, battle droids, those kind of things. Now, if you're looking for a more general primer on how list building in Shatterpoint works, I've already done that video. Check out the video linked in the description. And that uses, that touches on the Separatists as well, because that's the thing I know about the best, as it's kind of worked examples. But that really tells you about building lists and eras and all that sort of stuff. So that's assumed knowledge for this. This is going to be more of a tactical overview. Although be aware, I've been to one tournament. I've played probably about 12 games at most. Okay. So, you know, if I'm saying stuff that's really obvious, or if I'm saying stuff that's wrong, you're more than welcome to leave a comment and let me know either way, right? Let's begin, because we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. So, what are we working with? The Separatist faction is one of the kind of four big main factions in the game, possibly the smallest of the four big main factions in terms of cards on faction. So essentially with Separatists, you've got three boxes. You've got Count Dooku's box, General Grievous's box, and Asajj Ventress's squad, which is one of the four boxes found in the core set, right? And then, so you got Count Dooku, comes with Jango, Fett, and the Magnaguards. You got General Grievous, who comes with Kraken and the B2s. You got Asajj Ventress that comes with Kalani and the B1s. And then you've also got Savage Opress, who is a Separatist, but he comes with the Mother Talzin box, right? So he is also a Donathian, so it has a Separatist tag, but he doesn't have there's not a fourth, like, full Separatist box, okay? So this is what we're going to review. We're going to start with the primaries, and we're going to start with the leader of the Separatist army, Count Dooku himself. So Count Dooku, he has 7 squad points. So 8 is the main, the norm, right? As you probably know. And he brings 4 force, and again 3 is kind of the norm. So you're losing a squad point, you're gaining a force. Okay. He has 10 health, which is pretty good, and 3 wounds. I forget what the proper word is for them. We're going to call them wounds. Leader of the Separatist army. So at the start of this unit's activation, choose another allied Separatist Alliance character within 3. Each character in this unit and the chosen character may dash. This is the one time I'm going to explain Shatterpoint's weird wording. What this says is, when instead of each character in this unit, it means Count Dooku. They just love that horrible, clunky piece of wording. So Count Dooku plus another Separatist Alliance model within 3 can dash every time Count Dooku activates. This is great mobility for him, and he can bring a friend. It's fantastic, it's free, and it's the first instance of the game rewarding you there for having loads of other Separatists, right? You can see that. Yeah. Then we got Surely You Can Do Better, so reaction. When a character in... Now, this has been slightly errated. So it's when a character in this unit defends... I'm reading the errata from down here, right? When a character in this unit defends, during the modified dice roll step, this unit may spend 1 to 3 force to use this ability, change 1 hit to a miss for each force spent. So this can be fantastic. This can mean that you just keep Count Dooku alive and stop him getting hit. I had one game in the tournament I played in, the game against Swiss, where I used this, and he hadn't rolled any crits. He'd roll loads of hits, and I just spent 3 force to cancel the 3 hits, and then Count Dooku was fine. Now you can't do anything about crits with it, okay, which is fair, but you know, it's still a really powerful ability. And then we've got twice the pride, double the fall. So this costs a force. After a melee attack targeting allied character within 2 is resolved, this unit may use this ability. If the attack roll contained no hits, one character in this unit may dash and then may make a 5 dice attack against the attacking character. So this is really good. It disincentivizes people from attacking Dooku or even attacking other people that are near Dooku. So there's some quite good synergy here with it's not just when they attack him. So if he's next to like a Magnaguard and then they attack the Magnaguard because they're forced to, and then Dooku can attack them back, right? But it also synergizes with surely you can do better. So when he is attacked, he can spend force to try and make sure there's no hits in the attack roll, right? Now there can be crits. The trigger doesn't say anything about crits. It just says no basic hits. So likely to get off, right? The biggest thing to watch out for with this, where I've had problems with it, is if you're attacked by someone and you're on like a gantry and they get a push on their attack, so you end up on the ground and they're up on the gantry, you then can't attack them back because you can't climb or jump, you can only dash. So that's the thing to watch out for with Count Dooku. If possible, he wants to be on the ground level, right? So that he can't just be pushed off onto the ground and therefore the person attacking him is safe from the retaliatory trigger from Twice the Pride, right? Then we've got Brave but Foolish, which is his identity. So this is once per turn when an allied primary unit or allied secondary unit is wounded by an enemy effect. After the effect is resolved, refresh 2 force, and then an allied Separatist alliance supporting unit, one character in it can dash or make a 5 dice attack. This is really, really good. I constantly forget the 5 dice attack option is even there, which is even better. In my head, this is filed as they can dash. Even just the force refresh is amazing. Now, look, bear in mind that it's any primary or secondary. So you know this is 4 of the miniatures on the table, right, in a game where typically you only have 8 miniatures. So it's 50% of the models. If 50% of the models on your tabletop are wounded, then you get to refresh 2 of your force and have one of your supporting units make an attack. And again, you can see another instance where we're being rewarded for being within that Separatist alliance key there, right, where you want to have all your supports be Separatists. Now, looking at his, again, I really, really like that identity because it's just, you don't have to do anything, you don't have to work for it. It's just a big, massive buff that just is there, right, which I think is pretty great. So, looking at his stance cards, he's got, like all primaries, he's got 2 stances, Force Mastery and Form 2. Now, in the lore, he is, of course, the... he's the best user of Form 2 in Star Wars, is basically his thing. So, Form 2 is definitely his best side. He's getting 7 dice attack and defense in close combat, right? His defense expertise on a 1 or a 2, he's getting a block and turning a crit into a miss, and he really values getting that crits into the misses because, of course, he can spend force to get rid of regular hits as well, but getting crits into misses is great, okay? And then if he gets to 3 expertise on defense, he can turn 2 crits into misses, which is really, really good. And then his lightsaber expertise is just wild. 1 expertise is 2 crits. Right? Yeah, okay. 3 to 4, 5 plus. You're not getting that far, but 1 expertise is 2 crits, which is really, really good. And then, of course, Force Lightning on this side isn't really good because his Force Mastery side is going to be his ranged side, basically. Okay. So you've got a push and a damage on 1, all right, or a reposition and a damage. So it depends on what you need. You've got the 2 best things that you could have, I think, in this game: push and reposition, and you've got them on 1. Okay. If you are fighting against somebody who has steadfast and you want to get 2 pushes, you're not that unlikely to get 2 pushes because you've got push damage on 1, 2 pushes on 2, and then 2 pushes and a damage. A push and 2 damage on 3. You're quite likely to get to 3. Right, that's 4 damage. That's 5 damage, 2 pushes. That's a good swing. I mean, obviously, yes, we can talk about getting to the back end of the tree and the rest of the things on there. I don't know whether it's just something I'm doing wrong. I never get to the end of my tree. I'm always looking to see what's on 2, what's on 3. Other people get to the end of their tree against me. Most notably when I'm playing against Republic and they have the arfs and they've turned off defensive expertise and it really sucks. But he's got a really strong top end of his tree, and yeah, people like to count the damage, so he can do what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He could potentially do 11 damage on a very good day, which is a big deal. It can sometimes happen, but it doesn't all that often. So what does the other side of his tree give him? Well, you can see that his Force Lightning, his ranged attack, has 8 dice now and not 6, and also his ranged defense is 6 and not 5. Okay. His Force Lightning gets a much better much better expertise, right? Because it's now getting a crit and a damage on 1, and 2 crits and a damage on 3, which is really good. And the tree is, it's not as interesting, but what you're often going to do, it's going to depend what you want, right? If you're trying to soften somebody up because you're going to go into them later, you're going to go down that bottom path for damage, disarm, strain, maybe expose. If you can use the healing, right, you might go down the top way if you're just using it as like a sort of a safety shot, I guess. The thing to note on the Force Mastery side is his defensive expertise is just so much worse, right? Because you're losing that ability to do away with crits, which he really likes. So yeah, I tend to deploy him in Force Mastery, and then flip to Form 2, when I'm in combat, on the basis that you've got that extra defense dice from 5 to 6. But as I evolve as a player, I'm wondering if actually a lot of the time I think you're better off deploying him in Form 2 and leaving him in Form 2, unless you specifically decide in this turn I'm going to choose to do a Force Lightning attack, right? Because the defensive expertise is just really good in Form 2 anyway, right? And there's nothing worse than being caught in combat with Dooku in Force Mastery, right? When you're only rolling 6 defense dice and you've got your much less useful defensive expertise. It feels really bad. So I think Form 2 is the place to be, unless you decide you want to make a ranged attack. Then obviously you flip over to Force Mastery and make a ranged attack, and then you have to sit in Force Mastery. Of course, the benefit of deploying him in Force Mastery is that you can, if you want to move him up and shoot with him, because you can flip it once per activation, you can move him up, shoot with him, and then flip over to Form 2. So probably I'll keep deploying in Force Mastery, but it is annoying if you ever get caught out and you're in close combat in the wrong stance. Not that Force Mastery is bad, right? 10 wounds, 4 force, great. 7 squad points. When we get to list building in roughly 1,000 years, you'll see why that can be a problem. But that's Count Dooku. General Grievous, so the second of our three primaries. So let's look at his abilities. So Onward is his tactic. At the start of his unit's activation, choose another allied battle droid character within 4. The chosen character may dash. So again, this is really rewarding us for playing inside the Separatist tag. To be clear, all battle droids are Separatists, but not all Separatists are battle droids. General Grievous is not a battle droid. He's a droid, weirdly, but he's not a battle droid. So, again, it's rewarding you for having a thematic list, for being on theme, for having the right kind of tags, right? So when you turn him on, you get a free dash for somebody else. That's fine. It's not as good as Dooku's because it's only for the droids, and he's not benefiting from a dash himself, right? Then we got Scuttle for a force. Scuttle's amazing. Because you get to move and then pay a force and move again, which means that you really can be, in your opponent's backline pretty quickly with General Grievous if you need to be, right? Because a double move on, and he's got a large base as well, and because our movement works in Shatterpoint, if you just want to go over there and get within melee range of some supports that haven't even done anything, then Grievous genuinely can do it as long as there's not too much terrain in the road. Yeah. So that's cool, right? I've been training your Jedi art. Oh, sorry, I should mention on Scuttle, sorry. It also says that you get scale until the end of turn. So you can use Scuttle to do effectively, scale means whenever you would move, you can instead climb, right? So you could, it's just, in a very nuanced way, it's slightly different from saying Scuttle is pay 1, you can either move or climb. It effectively says you can either move or climb, but what it means is any future move that you might make could also be a climb. So he has reposition in both his trees. If you wounded or pushed away your opponent, so you were no longer in combat, and then you got to the reposition, and you had played Scuttle earlier that turn, then you could climb instead of repositioning if that's what you wanted to do. But it's such a nuanced point. I have been trained in your Jedi arts. It's 2 force, and honestly, you're probably never going to do it. Right, so after a melee attack made by a character in this unit is resolved, this unit may use this ability. Each enemy unit that has 1 or more characters engaged with the attacker except the defending unit suffers 2 damage. So you have to charge or be in combat with multiple targets, and the one that you don't fight, you can spend 2 force to do 2 damage with it. Right, very occasionally, this will be amazing if Dooku manages to have a go at somebody, get them onto 2 hits, right, and then he's in combat with somebody else. That means that he can potentially activate, kill the other thing, and then spend 2 force to do 2 damage to the thing from last time. But it is expensive. 2 force is not something that I want to spend very often, and it's very, very niche, okay? Appetite for Destruction. So after this unit makes combat action, choose an allied battle droid support within 3. The chosen character may dash, and then it may make a 5 dice attack, targeting one of the same enemy characters within melee range and within range and line of sight, or within whatever the range is on their gun, right, and line of sight. So this is quite good. It is a little bit tricky to use because you have to have somebody with him that you're planning to use it with, because 3's not that far. But it gives you some more synergy on that battle droid tag, and it means that you can just queue up an extra attack. And of course, because of the way battle droids work with Kalani, who we'll look at later, the 5 dice attack is going to quite often be a 6 dice attack, which is definitely worth having. So it's about thinking about who's going to go with Dooku and with Grievous, and be a target for Appetite for Destruction. We'll look at the options in a bit, but you want to be thinking about one of your supports. That's basically your supports wanting to go around with your primaries a lot of the time if you're playing the Separatists. And then you've got another fine addition to my collection, which is his identity. So it's a very selfish identity, okay? So I don't like it nearly as much as I like Dooku's identity. So when this character wounds an enemy unit, I mean, obviously it says when a character in this unit, but when this character wounds an enemy unit, after the effect is resolved, Grievous heals twice, right? Then, if the wounded unit was a Force user, and a lot of primaries are, there are more and more non-Force user primaries now. If the wounded unit was a Force user, refresh to Force. And so, the utility of this really is going to vary if you happen to be playing against, Empire, and it's, like Iden and Moff Gideon. I mean, they're not Force users, so your identity gets a lot worse. But if you're playing against, like, a Republic-like list, then likely you're going to have Jedi and Padawans and all these things running around. So it's really going to scale depending on what you happen to be fighting against, which is cool because it's thematic and awesome and fun because he hunts Jedi, but it's also sort of slightly annoying, just insofar as without the Force refresh, it's kind of meh. It's like I wounded someone, so I get to do 2 heals, and that's my identity that I have for being a primary. Looking at his cards, so yeah, he brings 8 squad points and 3 Force, which is just the standard. He has 11 wounds, which is pretty cool. Yeah. So looking at his cards, he has 2, and they're unlike. They're very clear what they're for, right? So Cunning Warlord has his range. He can't make his pistol attack when he's in quad arm attack mode. So Cunning Warlord has his ranged pistol attack, okay, which is a 7 dice pistol with 5 defense. The expertise tree is okay. I'd love to see a crit on 1 to 2, but there isn't one. And the tree itself, a push on 1 is fantastic. 2 damage. 2 is 4 damage, a push and a pin, which is great. 3 is either 4 damage, a push and a pin, and 2 heals, or 4 damage, a push and a pin, a jump and a damage. Getting things like a heal and or a jump, and then later on like a reposition if you get that far, is really good, because generally you're only flipping to Cunning Warlord and shooting if you haven't got the option of getting into close combat with somebody. He can fight in close combat on this side, but he's much worse at it. He does get really quite good defensive expertise on his Cunning Warlord side, right? So he's got a crit into a hit and a dash on 1 to 2, and then a block, a crit into a hit, and a reposition on 3, which is great. And again, it leads into that thing where if you're on Cunning Warlord, you're probably not where you want to be, and so getting the dashes and the repositions when someone shoots at you is really good. His quad arm attack form is what he wants to be in when he's actually in combat, right? So this ups his lightsaber attack to 8 dice, right? And the thing with the quad arm attack is that you can do like 7 damage on 3 squares, which is quite a lot of damage, right? And 3 is doable, right? If you get 5, then you've done 11 damage, which is hilarious. But 7 damage on 3 is great, and then if you get 3 expertise, there's another damage on there. So it's potentially 8 damage. That's going to kill some stuff, right? Not other Separatists with their 10 wounds, but it's going to kill a lot of things in the game. General Grievous is a bit like a fruit machine. I kind of view it as a game of will it blend with General Grievous, because if you roll well, you can just one-shot anything, practically, right? Because he just has a lot of damage available in his tree. But you have had combats with Grievous where he's gone in and he's done very little because he's been fighting a primary or somebody with decent defensive stats. So what Grievous really wants to do, actually, quite like his behaviour in the films, to be perfectly honest, is he really wants to bully weaker things. Right. He really wants to go and find some supports, or maybe like utility secondaries and kill them. Which he could quite likely do in one hit, right? What he doesn't necessarily want to do, which I have often made the error of doing with him, is run into an Obi-Wan Kenobi or a Darth Vader and hope to kill them, because chances are he won't, because chances are they will have decent defense, right? So that's Grievous. He is really, he's a bully. He wants to go in and bully things. And yeah, it's worth saying as well, if he can get into your backlines quite quickly, because he's on a massive base with his 2 moves. So very much his thing is he wants to get up the board and start taking out your other bits, not really make the mistake that I usually make and charge into your primaries. Okay, that's never really going to be a good time for Grievous. Finally, we got Asajj Ventress. So Asajj is interesting because she cares the least about being in the right faction, and she has 2 factions she can go in equally well, right? So Asajj has Dathomirian Dexterity for a force, so spend a force, do a jump, and you can do that up to twice. So she can be absurdly mobile, but she's just as mobile as Grievous, really, with the difference being that she has to spend 2 force where Grievous only has to spend 1, right? Because Grievous is getting 2 moves with a massive base. Asajj is getting a move and then 2 jumps on a smaller base, but spending an extra force. So they're pretty equivalent in terms of the distance covered, although it's worth saying that a jump is not the same as a climb, and you can jump out of combat. So she is a bit more mobile, but you do pay more for it if you're having to use it twice. Force push. Force push is why you consider taking Asajj, I think. It's the thing that she has that's special, at least in this faction, right? So force push, it does cost 2 force. Choose a character in this unit and an enemy character within 3 of that character. Push the chosen enemy character 3 away from the chosen allied character. So you just get to go, no, you're not there. You're not on the objective. You're not on this piece of terrain. You're not whatever it is. You're over there, right? Fantastic. It's called diceless displacement. Diceless displacement. That's the lingo among the people that know how to talk about this game. And this is one of our first, it's one of the earliest examples of this in Shatterpoint, and it's still really cool, right? So then you've got riposte. So after a melee attack, targeting a character in this unit is resolved. This unit may use this ability if the attack can take 1 or more misses. The attacking unit suffers 2 damage. It just happens. It's free. You don't need to worry about it. It's nice to have, but your opponent's not going to lose sleep over it, right? It's 2 damage. It's not... it's unlikely to make a difference. There will be moments where it does, but they're unlikely to care that much, right? Slip away. When another allied Dathomirian or Separatist Alliance character targets an enemy character that's engaged with 1 or more characters in this unit with an attack, this unit may use this ability. 1 character in this unit that's engaged with the target character may immediately move. If it does, this unit gains a hunker. I've never managed to successfully use this, because I'm not very good at positioning my supports appropriately. Like, Ventress often just goes off on a mad one with her jumps and is trying to assassinate somebody. But if you do this, if you can do this, and you can then move her forwards, right, and get her onto an objective, that can be something else that you can do. It's another trick in your toolbox, and it can be something else that you could do that could potentially, score you a point when you struggle, because if you've got her bogged down in a irrelevant combat somewhere else, right, where she's engaged with somewhere else, it's like, okay, cool. If I shoot that guy with these B1s, doesn't matter if the guy that they're shooting is wounded, doesn't matter if they do anything to the guy, but if I shoot the guy with the B1s, right, let's say, then that means I can now go, oh cool, now Ventress gets to reposition, which could be a big deal. And I need to remember more when I'm playing Ventress that she has that rule. right? And the thing, one of the key things with Shatterpoint is remembering the stuff that's on the cards of the unit that you're not currently activating that are going to be relevant during that unit's activation, right? Because those are the things that are going to slip your mind the most. And then pretty similar to Grievous. Well, no, it is different. So Grievous, for all I said that he wants to, he wants to kill secondaries and supports. Grievous does get to heal twice whenever he wounds anything. If it happens to be a Force user, refreshes, 2 Force. Like, Grievous very specifically and appropriately, his best thing that he wants to hunt down is, like, Padawans, okay? He wants to go and kill the Padawans. He wants to go and kill the Force users that aren't the most powerful. Ventress, on the other hand, with Sith Assassin, she needs to wound a primary or a secondary to trigger it, right? And specifically, she is an assassin. She wants to go after these big primaries. Because if you wound a primary unit with Ventress, you get to do 3 heals, right? So whenever she wounds, she does 3 heals. If it's a primary or secondary, she does 3 heals and a move or a jump. If it's a primary, she does 3 heals, a move or a jump, and refreshes 2 Force, which is a lot, right? So Ventress, you want to send her after a primary. Now, can she kill primaries? Well, let's look at her stances. They are tricky, okay? So Jarkai is, you've got that nice big damage track at the top, so you can do 6, which on 8 dice with a decent-ish, utility expertise tree, like, you're fairly likely to get to 3 and do 6 damage. Now, 6 damage isn't going to kill a fresh primary, okay, but one that's taken a round of shooting from B2s or something, yeah, it could do, right? So that's definitely something, right? You're trying a lot of times, very rarely happens. I often will charge somebody and I'm like, well, I'll do the attack, right? Hoping to get to that 4 to get the free Force push, because not having to spend 2 Force on Force push is great. But often with Ventress, what I'm doing is I'm going to charge, fight. If I don't get the free Force push, I'll then spend for the Force push. It's like a safety net. Like, assuming you're not wounded or I've got the Force push for free, I'll then spend the 2 Force, assuming I have it, right? But that's generally the plan. If you want to, you can go along the bottom on Jarkai as well. And put the conditions on. If you go, well, how many wounds have you got? And they're like, well, I've got 9 wounds. And you're like, okay, well, do I want to do 6 wounds and nothing else against a 9 wound character, or do I want to do 3 conditions and 3 wounds? And often it's the 3 conditions and 3 wounds is what you want to do. If you're not killing it, then with that action, then you no longer really care about how many wounds you're doing as much, and you'd rather ladle on the conditions, I think. Now, again, one of the main reasons I favour the Jarkai over the Form 2 is in Jarkai, her defensive utility is much more interesting, right? So, she's got a block and a crit into a hit on 1, on 2, which is you're rolling 6 dice, 2 to 3, 2 blocks and a crit into a hit, and 4 or more, 2 blocks, a crit into a hit, and a hit into a miss as well, which is very similar to a block, right? But it means that it can't be. Some rules might interact with it differently, which is fine. Now, when are you going to use Form 2? In Form 2, your offensive expertise is better, slightly, right? 2 crits on 1 is better than a crit hit on 1, for sure, okay? But you're rolling 1 less dice with your melee attacks, which kind of sucks, okay? Now, Form 2 has access to pushes, which is nice, but you've got Force push, so what precisely is your plan? I don't know. I, generally speaking, prefer just to live in Jarkai, and I can never work out when I'm supposed to want to go into Form 2. Because Jarkai has all the options, right? I can either... They both have the free force push on a 3, right? With Jarkai, I can do a shed load of damage if that's going to wound. If 6 is going to wound, then fantastic. Or I can put on a strain, a pin, and on 3, that expose, which is one of the best conditions in the game. Form 2 is just there for really if I'm trying to get pushes or, I guess, loads of heals at the end, but you're never going to get that far along the tree. So I much prefer just to deploy in Jarkai, to stay in Jarkai for the whole game, just to be in Jarkai for the whole game, and not really bother with Form 2 very much with Asajj. So how do I rank the primaries? For me, Dooku is clearly the best. I really value, maybe too much, I'm not the best Shatterpoint player in the world, but I really value his tactic being a board-wide buff. Right, the fact that he, whenever you wound a primary or a secondary, you get to move a support, do a 5 dice attack with them, and refresh 2 force is great. It's going to come up a lot. Whereas Grievous and Asajj both have to wound stuff to do stuff. They're quite similar characters, Grievous and Asajj, in the way they work. They're pretty close. I think Grievous is a bit more mobile for less force investment and is a bit more killy, right? Whereas Asajj wants to go after, explicitly go after primaries. I think he doesn't have the easiest time of it. Really, the reason to bring Asajj is because you want that force push, whereas Grievous doesn't have the most access to pushes. Or any access to pushes, really, I don't remember, as I recall. So I actually think that these are really well balanced, right? Grievous is the best, but he does make you pay for that by giving you 1 less squad point, whereas I think, Dooku, I keep dyslexiaing up their 2 names for some reason. Dooku is the best, but you do pay for that with 1 less squad point. I think Grievous is slightly better than Asajj, but I think that they're much of a muchness in their own way, and it's not wrong. If you say I prefer Asajj to General Grievous, I'm not going to look at you like you're a madman. But Grievous does also hand out that dash to your I think he edges it in a couple of different ways. Right, we're going to start looking at the secondaries, and we're going to start with Kalani. So Kalani is pretty legendarily awesome. I think Kalani is pretty mandatory in any Separatist lists, actually. So we'll look at why that is. So he starts off with Roger Roger. This is his tactic. At the start of this unit's activation, each allied battle droid supporting character within 4 may dash. So this is really great, really impactful. If you're running all droid supports, and you really should be, because all the Separatist supports are droids, you can get a lot of movement. I joke and I say I'm going to take a Warhammer movement phase now. You get a lot of movement, right? And don't forget that generally speaking, you're looking for a move and a dash to get to the centre objectives. So handing out all those dashes to your droids means that on their turn they can just move up and stand on an objective. Okay. Now you do have to deploy correctly. It's possible to screw yourself up. You need to sort of put Kalani in the middle of the thing, and make sure the droids on the other side are in the middle of their thing, and then you're all within 4 of each other. And of course, if you've bottom decked Kalani, it's rough, right? Because you end up in an interesting position with this sort of list where it's like, okay, if you pull one of your droid supports first, it's very tempting to reserve them. And then you're hoping to get Kalani. If you get your other secondary or your primaries, you can go with them. It doesn't really matter. You can pull them out of... you can move other things, but you really don't want to move those supports until you've got to go with Kalani, which sometimes leads you into suboptimal play. Because the thing with Roger Roger is you can't move before you do it. You have to be, when it gets around to your turn, you have to be in the right place to do it. So there is that. Roger Roger isn't what makes him an auto take, by the way. That's the one everyone fixates on. It is good and it looks powerful, but by itself, that's not what makes him an auto take. Okay, so tactical network for a force. Choose another allied battle droid character within 4, so not a support. So you can do it to Kraken as well, if you want to, but not Grievous. Grievous isn't a battle droid. They thought of that. Okay. Choose another allied battle droid character within 4. The chosen character may dash. They may gain a hunker, remove 1 condition, or make a 5 dice attack. So they get a dash, and then 99% of the time, you're going to dash and then make a 5 dice attack, which is pretty cool. You know, a dash can make a 5 dice attack with a B2 is pretty impactful. Is it always worth doing? Do you always have to spend a force on it? Not always. Often, not always. Okay. Now it's worth saying that just like when we looked at Asajj, on his tree on 3, he can do tactical network for free. So generally speaking, Kalani's turns involve him. You resolve Roger, and then maybe you move, and then you do a shoot action, and then if you don't get to 3 on the shoot action, you're going to spend for tactical network. If you do get to 3 on the shoot action, you're going to do tactical network for free, which is cool. 3 is kind of the top of where you hope to get to with any of these things, but it's possible, right? And then you've got target, concentrates, or firepower. Now, this is what I think makes him an auto-include. When an allied battle droid character makes an attack, if a targeted character is within 4 of 1 or more other allied battle droid characters, the attacking character adds 1 dice to its attack roll. So if you just think just from Tactical Network and from General Grievous, like there's all these 5 dice attacks knocking around, or from Count Dooku, from his identities, 5 dice attack there as well. These can all become 6 dice attacks, which is a big deal. It's a big deal. As long as you keep your droids kind of together. Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. Really, really like it. It's global. Now, you know, can you screw yourself up with your distance of 4? Yeah, absolutely. Is it something you need to keep an eye on? Yes, absolutely. But I think it's really powerful, really strong, and I wouldn't want to play Seps without Kalani. I don't think I would ever want to play Seps without Kalani. And it's not because of Roger. It's because of target, concentrate, or firepower. If you think I'm massively off base with that, let me know in the comments, because I am relatively new to this game, and that is a strident take. Okay. But this is the reason he's 5 squad points, 5 point cost, right? He uses up 5 of your squad points, which when we get onto list building later on, you'll see that is a problem, right? It is a problem. But yeah. And then you've got complete analysis. When you spend a force to place him in reserve, you can spend 1 less force. So unless someone like Moff Gideon is there, you can reserve him for free. Often will reserve Kalani after the deck has gone round, or if I Shatterpointed Kalani, because I will Shatterpoint Kalani. If I get the Shatterpoint in the first couple of activations, I'll absolutely Shatterpoint Kalani so that I can get things moving. Yeah. If he comes up later and you look at the table and you're like, oh, well, right now there's nobody around, then often reserve him when it's free. Yeah. And then, because he can also be a really clutch having a tactical droid in reserve, because you can activate one of your sports, then move them near the tactical droid, shoot with them, and then next activation you go for the tactical droid, and then you get to shoot with them again, which is nice to do. He has a surprisingly powerful rifle. So his E5 blaster rifle, he's rolling 7 dice, right? Or 8 if there's another allied battle droid within 4, what often there will be, of his target, right? And he has a crit on 1 expertise, which is pretty good. 2 expertise is a crit and 2 hits, which is fine. And on his tree, you know, obviously it will be great to get to the end of the tree, but it very rarely happens in this game. But to get to 3, which is where you really want to hope to be able to get to, you know, that's 4 damage and a shove and a free tactical network. Like, that's nothing to be sniffed at, right? If you shoot the thing, that you're then going to tactical network somebody to do a 5 dice attack into the thing has a decent chance of dying. Pretty good. Doesn't want to be in combat because the expertise tree on Bash is alarmingly poor. His defensive expertise it's fine. It's not great. Has on 5+, he has 2 blocks and a move, but he has 4 defense dice, so has to be hunkered and roll all expertise to get to worry about those. But yeah, it is fine. Doesn't want to be punished particularly much. Kraken. So Kalani's little bro. He is similar but different. So he only costs 4. So he's worse. And the reason he's worse is essentially he doesn't have concentrate or firepower. It's not there. Everything else, arguably, he's better at the other things. So he has do not let them escape. Do not let them escape is his tactic. And you can nominate a supporting unit each character may dash. So this is both stronger and weaker than Kalani's version. Because Kalani potentially can be both of your droid supports, but they all have to be within 4. Kraken's is 1 droid support, but it's anywhere on the table, which is pretty cool, especially later in the game when things are getting all wibbly squiggly. It's pretty cool. And then you've got Tactical Network exactly the same, and just like Kalani, he can get it for free if he goes 3 down his track. So yeah, that's fine. You could use Do Not Let Them Escape to set up Tactical Network if you're far away from all of your friends, if you wanted to do that as well. But you can also move with your move to make sure that you get to within 4 of someone to Tactical Network, right? It's less of an issue. He's got Complete Analysis as well, exactly as per Kalani. And then he has Conqueror's Resolve. While it's contesting an active objective, it has both Protection and Steadfast, which is pretty good. Like, yeah, ignoring a damage with 10 wounds and also not being pushed, he can be a frontline-ish kind of commander, kind of objective holder. He has a very similar combat tree, right? It's arguably better because he can get a pin on 1, right? If he wants to, he has that option as well. But you can get 2 pushes, 3 damage, and the free ability on 3. Or if you don't need the free ability, 5 damage, which isn't to be sniffed at either. It's a bit worse. In some ways it's better, in some ways it's worse. It's got less damage there, necessarily. Because if you look at Kalani's, for the 3 on Kalani, you can do 4. And on this guy, if you're going for the 3 and you're heading for the free Tactical Network, you're doing 3 rather than 4. But you are potentially getting 2 pushes rather than 1, or a pin and a push. So you're trading a damage for a pin or a second push. One's better sometimes than the other's better the other. In terms of his, the dice are the same, 7 and 4. In melee, it's weird. He's rolling 1 less dice. Okay, he's rolling 5 dice. But he does gain that extra tier on his bash if he somehow gets 4 or more things. I've written on the slide that he's much better at punching. That's not strictly true, is it? He has to get to 4+, which is unlikely when he's rolling 4 dice. But it's there for you. The blaster rifle is exactly the same. The self-preservation is exactly the same. Okay. I think Kraken's really cool. The question is not to take Kraken or Kalani. The question is, we're taking Kalani. Do we also need Kraken, or is that overkill? Jango Fett. So Jango Fett's a bit legendary. If you've watched a lot of other people's Shatterpoint content, a lot of people are like, oh, Jango Fett's S tier. Jango Fett's amazing. Jango Fett, like, wow. The thing is, Jango Fett gains very little from being a Separatist and doesn't care that he's a Separatist. So he is a Separatist, and, Count Dooku can dash him, but that's about it, right? So, okay. Let's go through what he has on his cards. So for 1 force, he can jump. Cool. Capture wire. I'll come back to capture wire. Let's do this. My client is getting impatient because that's straightforward, right? So if you focus, you can jump for free. So effectively, similar to Asajj, you can get 2 jumps, but you do need to spend an activation for the one where you need to focus. So it's interesting. It's interesting. I'm just looking to get paid is very good. Okay, so when he wounds an enemy primary or secondary after it's resolved, refresh 2 force, and a character in this unit may heal twice. And you could evaluate that and be like, oh, well, he has to wound a primary or a secondary. Is he that likely to, he's blah, blah, blah. But then you remember, we're not evaluating the identity on a primary here. Jango's just got an ability that reads like it should be an identity, but it's just a passive. Right? He's a secondary, and he can potentially refresh you 2 force. If it happens just once, it's still amazing, right? So that's really good. Really, really, really rather good for a secondary. Go back and read Capture Wire. So Capture Wire costs you a force. Choose a character in this unit and an enemy character within 3 of that character. So it's pull the chosen enemy character 2 towards the chosen allied character, then the enemy character gets pinned. So this is harder to use, for example, than the force push on Asajj Ventress, because the thing with a pull is you have to position yourself carefully so that you're far enough away from them to actually pull them off the point with the pull of 2. And it can be a little fiddly. I remember, because obviously I started playing with just the core box and Dooku's box, so I used Jango Fett in many of my early games, and it is depressingly easy to mess yourself up with Capture Wire and be like, oh yeah, I move and I'm within 3, and then I pull you towards me, and then your opponent goes, cool, well, you pull me towards you, I'm now in base-to-base contact with you, and happily I'm also still within 2 of the edge of the point, right? So it's not quite as good as a push, and it's only distance 2 and not distance 3. But if you use it properly, it's very good. Okay. And then he's got Not So Fast, which is a reaction that does cost a force, though. At the start of an enemy unit's activation, if 1 or more characters in that unit are within 3 of a character in this unit may use this ability. Roll 5 attack dice. The activated unit suffers a damage for each crit hit in the roll. That's madness. It's absolutely madness, because it's just going to potentially really upset people, because you could spike it and do 5 damage, which might be significant. You're hurting somebody in their turn, which feels unfair, right? Now, one of the things with Jango is you can have a really good turn with him where he doesn't really do any dice rolling. So you can quite happily, move, jetpack maybe, or focus for another jetpack to get into the right position, and then you Capture Wire someone off a point. No, sorry, what you want to do is you want to move, Capture Wire, and then jetpack so that you yourself are on the point, right? That's the thing that you want to try and do. And if you do that, you've just swung a point, you've not had to shoot anybody, you've not had to roll any dice, and if you can position it correctly so that you are on the point, but you're also within 3 of the person that you pulled off the point, then when they activate that model to try and deal with the fact that you're on the point, they're going to take some random free damage. And you haven't had to roll any of your dice, which is pretty good, actually. Now, if you can, with the distances, you'd like to be able to get a shot in there as well. You'd like to be able to move, shoot, Capture Wire, jetpack, right? That would be better. Because if he can get a 3 on his tree, he can do the Capture Wire for free. Okay, although if you which is really good, right? Only ever use that for the Capture Wire, because if you were going to use it for the jetpack, go the other way and get 2 bonus damage into the bargain. All right, but he's a really, really cool piece, but he is fiddly for a brand new player. There's a lot of measuring involved to make sure that you actually are going to pull the person off the objective. You're going to get onto the objective. You're going to do things, but I think that's really cool. And plus, which I think is amazing. You got the strain on 2. So if you pull it off right, if you get all your ducks in a row, you can move, pull someone off the objective, right? No, sorry, move, shoot, strain them, pull them off the objective, jump over them, capture their point, and then when they activate, not only are they rolling 5 dice and giving them a random number of damage, but then they're also dealing with the strain, and they might just die. So it's pretty good. He's pretty funky. He doesn't really care about the Separatists being, like I said, being a Separatist. He does have a small amount of synergy with Dooku. Also want to say Beskar armor's really good, because 1 expertise is 2 blocks, and 3 or more is 3 blocks, but 1 expertise being 2 blocks is pretty good as well. So yeah, Jango Fett is pretty cool. And one of the nice things about Jango is, if you are not building around a particular tag and you're in the right era, you're in the sort of Clone Wars era for Jango, just shove him in your list. He's going to do all that stuff pretty irrelevantly to what anybody else is doing, which is pretty cool. Finally, we got Savage Opress. Savage Opress is really good. I don't know if he's good, but he's really, really cool. Right, so Savage Opress starts off with Dark Fury. It does cost 2 Force, which is very, very expensive. Okay, choose an enemy unit within 2. Roll 5 attack dice. The chosen unit suffers damage for each crit hit in the roll, and if the chosen unit is a Force user and suffers damage from this ability, the unit gains Expose. Would I pay 2 Force to do, like, maybe 0, maybe 5 damage against a non-Force user? Maybe not. Would I spend it against a Force user with the Expose in there? Like, yeah, I would. Yeah, I would. Yeah. Furious Rush. For a Force, you can dash. If you're injured, you can do a full move. Well, okay. Like, getting to do a move and then another move, like I was saying with Dooku, how good that is. That's really good. Okay? This guy is a mobile murderer. He just does this one thing very well. Overpowering monster. When the character in this unit makes an attack targeting a primary character, add 2 dice to the damage roll. He's already got 7 dice on his melee attack. So, a 9 dice attack? Against an opponent that you've just used Dark Fury on, and therefore you've chipped and exposed. Are you beginning to see what Savage Opress does for you? He does one thing. He has protection and steadfast. Protection with 10 wounds is pretty cool. Steadfast, just don't push him. He can't be pushed. It's fine, right? His defensive expertise is not great, right? 1 block on 1, which is fine. A block and a jump on 2 or more, which is fine. But being 10 wounds with steadfast is still good. He's still going to be hard to shift, even without amazing defensive expertise. And then you've got Unwitting Brute. When an allied Separatist Alliance primary or allied Darnathian primary unit starts its activation within 3, 1 character in this unit may dash. Now, this is a really good trick if you've got him near Count Dooku, because you can activate Count Dooku, then you can trigger, because if 2 things happen at the same time, you choose how to resolve them. So you trigger Count Dooku's ability, you give Savage a free dash, you give Dooku a free dash, you make sure they're still within 3, then you trigger Unwitting Brute, and you give Savage another dash. So Savage has just got 2 free dashes on the bounce in Dooku's activation. This is a lot of mobility. Okay, I like him. He's very simple, but I like him. His combat tree is pretty funny as well. 2 damage on 1, 4 damage on 2, 6 damage to 3, and if you get to 4, 8 damage, which, like I've been saying all the way through, really only worth looking at the first 3 boxes, but you've got a guy here who's running 9 dice and handing out Expose. So you're in this scenario where, in theory, if you manage to get him in combat with a Force user primary, then, you could one-hit Darth Vader with this guy, potentially, which is funny. Um, he doesn't have any pushes on his tree at all. He has a pointless like free ability. So if you get to the end of his tree, you can use Furious Rush for free if you want to, which is not the worst thing, I guess. You can like leapfrogging him around. Um, it's just a little reward for getting to the end of his tree, I suppose. And if you wanna, if you're not, if you look at it, you're not going to do enough damage, then you can hand out some conditions instead, which is always fun as like your backup plan. But Savage Opress just goes, okay, what I would like to do is I would like to charge headlong into the nearest force-using primary character that I can find and kill them. Is it the best choice? Is it going to help you actually win games and score points? Possibly. Possibly not. Is it amazing fun? Yeah. Yeah, it is. You just like, well, good. Damage, good. He's almost like the opposite of Grievous in that respect, in that Grievous really just wants to hunt down things that are just slightly weaker than him and totally murder them, whereas this guy's like, no. I'm just going to get markedly better when I'm killing primary Jedis, because I hate them. Amazing. He's fun. Where do I think they rank? Actually, I think he ranks at the bomb in terms of actual utility. So I know that the internet ranks and raves about Jango and say S tier and this, that, and the other. But I think a lot of that is through the lens of if you're ranking them, like, he is S tier because all the things he does that are really cool, he will do in any list. You just pop him in there as long as it's in the right era. You just pop him in and away you go, and that's what makes him really good. But for this video, where I'm particularly talking about, look, we're building a separatist list. Kalani is the king of the castle. I don't think you're leaving home without Kalani just because he's such a force multiplier because of that extra dice, right? Then, do you want Jango? Do you want Kraken? I think that comes down to your personal taste. Do you want to make your droids even better? Or do you want to have one guy that's off being more of an independent operator, doing things with the points and trying to score you them? Okay? I think that comes down to personal preference. I don't think either answer is bad. I don't think Savage is bad either. I just think he only does one thing. Now, I don't want to do a deep dive on mission packs because I've already been talking for over an hour and we are maybe halfway done. I don't think Savage is bad, right? He does his thing that he does, and his thing that he does is occasionally useful to you. Now, that said, if you're playing on Never Tell Me the Odds, which is a mission where you can occasionally draw a card, so you have to kill someone with a secondary, and then you spend a force and you gain a momentum, I'm like, okay, I wish I had a secondary that wanted to kill people now, and then I wish I had Savage Opress in my list, because he wants to kill people more than anybody else on this slide, because that's what he does. He kills people. With his double-ended lightsaber. Good. Let's look at the supports. So we're going to start with the Magnaguard. Magnaguard have 10 health, which is quite a lot for a support, right? Because they're made of metal, which is aces. Magnaguard cost 3 for the reason is they have no gun, but like they probably could cost 4. I don't want them to cost 4 because that would make list building really suck. For Separatists, but yeah, they cost 3, that's fine. They've got protection protocols. After an allied Separatist alliance primary unit makes a move action, this unit may use its ability, choose a character in the activating primary unit. One character in this unit may move towards the chosen character. I always forget to do this, because I'm stupid. You have to move towards a primary, so it's possible to screw yourself up a little bit. But honestly, these want to be keeping up with the primaries. So, a little bit of counter synergy here, insofar as if you want to do the thing that I just said about Dooku with Savage, where Dooku's handing out his free dash to Savage, it does mean that like if you have Dooku with a Magnaguard, Dooku can dash, the Magnaguard can dash, then Dooku can move, then the Magnaguard can move, and they're right up next to each other all the time on a point, which is pretty good. Like, that's pretty hard to shift. It's pretty sweet as a little package. If you have 2 different, like, Separatist primaries, you've got Dooku and Grievous, do you send one Magnaguard up with Dooku, and then the other Magnaguard starts moving off towards General Grievous? not sure. I'm not sure how to best use the Magnas. I always end up really sending them off to do their own thing, which isn't really what they're for. They're bodyguards. They're even really good when they go off and do their own thing, has to be said. But I never seem to use them quite right. It's something I really need to work on, because even using them badly, they do loads of work for me every game. But they really want to be with your primary, right? We'll see more about that. So they got bodyguard, allied primary and allied secondary characters. Within 2 of this character has cover 1. I forget about this a lot. Somebody once told me that you had to be hunkered to benefit from cover 1. You don't. That's a lie. You know, cover 1 just gives you an extra defense dice, right? You have to be hunkered to gain cover 1 from terrain, right? But the rule in Hunker is like you gain cover 1 if you meet all these other conditions. This just hands out cover 1. This just gives you an extra defense dice. This is good, okay? Just for being within 2 of Magnaguard, you just have extra defense. Splendid. So you got a little bubble now with the Magnaguard and Savage Opress and Count Dooku. Like, I don't know what that flank's doing. It's not well, okay? Yeah. It's probably too many eggs in one basket though, right? But it's funny. And then you got Intercede, so while someone is engaged with one or more characters in this unit, they can't target allied primary or secondaries, so they have to kill the Magnaguard first, which is pretty cool, actually, because the Magnaguard's got 10 wounds. One thing I really like doing with Asajj Ventress in a Magnaguard is oftentimes she'll heal the Magnaguard when she gets her heal from wounding somebody, which really frustrates your opponent sometimes. That's a good trick as well. But yeah, I just need to learn to use these well, because honestly, I've gone entire games without using any of the rules on their card and just using their tree. And the thing is, when I just use their tree, they're not bad, because look at their tree. If they get 2, they get 2 shoves and 3 damage, and 2 shoves and 3 damage is often just what you want. Because 2 shoves just gets, even if someone's on there's like a spot, if you're on the dead center of an objective, 1 shove won't get you off the objective. But 2 shoves is perfection, right? 3 damage, 2 shoves is a great result. If you get more than that and you can do 5 damage and 2 shoves and a reposition, or 5 damage, 2 shoves and a disarm, that's fine as well. Often don't want to do the reposition because I've just shoved you off a point and I want to be there and capture the point, right? But the disarm is fine and good, okay? They don't have a ranged attack, which is why, yes, they cost 3. Magnas aren't one. They aren't, look. I mean, they've got a great expertise tree on their melee attacks as well. 2 expertise is 2 crits. Fair and balanced, sir. But they do have downsides, right? Downside the first. If your first draw is Magnas, then, like, okay, you could move and hunker, and then you might be on a midline objective if you've deployed the Magna, like, far forwards, like, directly forwards and not off at an angle, and they can travel in a straight line. You might just about be on an objective, but it's not ideal. They don't have a gun, they're not doing anything else, they're not doing anything interesting. So you generally always want to reserve them if you top deck them, which, you know, the nightmare scenario with a lot of these Separatist lists is, I draw Magnas, I reserve Magnas, I draw B1s, and I have to play these B1s and move them out of position, and they don't have, and they're just doing a regular move and a shoot, and they're not getting onto anything useful. It's tragic. Doesn't happen often. Every other draw is fine. B1s, you can reserve at the bottom of the deck. Tactical droids, you just go with them. Primaries, you just go with them. It's just that one scenario. I never want to see the Magnas on my first draw. Ever. Right? Want to see them late in the struggle. Come on. So, that's Magnaguard. B2 battle droids. So, Relentless Advance, spend a force, get a dash. It's not as good as spend a force, get a jump, but I'll take it, right? It's there. It's not the best use for a force, but it's there, it's good, it's fine. Saturation Fire, spend a force. When a character in this unit targets an enemy character that's contesting one or more active objectives with an attack, the unit may use the ability add 2 attacks to the dice roll. So, yeah, an 8 dice attack. Now, bear in mind, it is only for one of the 2 B2s. So you're spending a force for 2 dice on one of the attacks. It's not bad. Like, most of the time, this is going to be an option because most of the time you're shooting somebody, they're going to be on an active objective, right? Like, that's the game. So, yeah, is it worth it? It depends what you're running. It depends who you've got on your team. If Dooku is there, right, refreshing your force for you a lot, then, and if Jango is there with force refresh, if you've got force, often Separatists do, if you've got the force, you might have Grievous as well, has got some force refresh. Like, if you have the force to spare, it's worth doing. Yeah. But they can get very hungry. I have had activations with the B2s where I've wanted to spend both of those, right? And then that's quite a lot of force gone. Enhanced blast armor, they just have protection. Great. I mean, they only have 8 wounds. Really weird to me. Because 8's not a low number of wounds in the terms of the game, but 8's a weirdly low number in terms of Separatists. Like B1s that we're going to look at in a minute, they have 9. Right, so the B2s, despite being more advanced and having enhanced blast armor, giving them protection, they have 8. 8 wounds of protection is probably more defensive than 9 wounds, for sure. But not always. Depends what you're fighting against. And it's just a bit weird that they only have 8 wounds. Isn't it, though? When the Magnus have 10, like, I don't know. I'm not saying it's not reasonable and balanced from a game perspective. It's just that Ludo narrative discombobulation. I forget the rest of that really complicated phrase I learned once for meaning like the rules don't articulate what the lore of the game feels like it should be. Yeah, Ludo narrative dissonance. There we go. I got there. Yeah. But the combat tree is good, right? So there's a push on 1, there's another push on 3, right? So again, with my rule of thumb of I hope to get to 3, I'm looking to do, 4 damage and 2 pushes. That's great. Or I don't need 2 pushes. I can do 4 damage, a push, and a reposition, which could also be great. And the weirdness of the expertise tree on the blaster with just damage on it, which is fine, isn't it? So it's going to be 5 damage. It's not an insignificant amount of damage. It's good. Defensive expertise is a bit meh, right? Like, oh, good. I rolled 2 expertise and got 1 block. Cool. I love it when my expertise is worse than a block per expertise. That's my favourite thing. And bash, again, 1 to 2 is a single hit. They don't want to be in combat. They don't like fighting in combat. They don't want to be in combat. They are for shooting with. Yes. B2s. Finally, the little brothers of the B2s, the B1s. The B1s can, conversely, never cost you any force. Because all of their abilities are passive. Even when they're injured, their abilities don't cost you any force. They just happen, which is great. We're going to start with Combat AI Protocols, which is another ability that I am frankly guilty of not using and forgetting that it's there, right? So after an allied battle droid, so any allied battle droid makes a combat action, if one of the characters it was targeting is within 4 of both B1s, the character gets a strain or an expose. Right, really good. So you want to keep your B1s together, generally speaking. You never want to spread them out so that you can hand out some strains and exposed whenever people shoot people. So what you can do with this is things like, if you're clever, right, look, you move up your B1s so that within... if you notice that your B1s are within 4 of somebody, and then you get an activation on somebody like Kalani, right? So Kalani comes along, you move your B1s up, you get into within 4 of somebody with the dash, then Kalani shoots. The person they're shooting is within 4 of both B1s. The person Kalani shoots gets the expertise, and then tactical network to the B1s to then do the 5 becomes a 6 dice attack. A 6 dice attack against someone with expertise. Have I ever done this on the table? No. Right. What's the real reason I'm doing this video? This is how I learn the team. This is for me. If you're still watching this at this point, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. This is for me. This is a learning process. So it is a really powerful ability, and it's one that I need to embed in my noggin. Well, I guess I'm in charge now. Yeah, wait, I've already mentioned this on a previous slide. When you reserve them, you can put them on the bottom of your order deck instead. Now, the wrinkle with this is to be eligible to be reserved, you do still have to have nothing in reserve. So you can't reserve them if something's in reserve, even though they're not going into your reserve slot. So don't cheat. Don't get that bit wrong, okay? So you have to have the reserve slot empty in order to reserve them. But other than that, it's really useful. And it's nice to know, because knowing the B1s are the last card just gives you a bit more information as you get down the deck as to what the other cards that you could draw are likely to be. That's cool. And then I hate this job. When they're on an objective, they have protection. Protection with 9 wounds is nice. Right? If we said for the B2s, protection with 8 wounds was pretty good. Protection with 9 wounds, but they do have to be on an objective. But that's their job. Their job is primarily going to be to stand on points. That's their job. Right? Now, the combat tree is pretty bad because they haven't got a shove until 4. And the shove on 4, in my experience, is a lie. You hope it will come up. It would win you the struggle if it came up, and then you shove that guy, and then you scored that point, and it doesn't come up. Reposition on 2 is great. Expose on 3 is pretty good. If you get the stars to align and you get the thing where you've managed to get the expose to come out of them with someone like Kalani shooting them, and then they do the 6 dice attack, and then the enemy is exposed, maybe you're going to go to 4 that way, but you need to worry about getting the expose on first. Okay? Their defensive expertise is hilarious, because my opponents at the tournament, like, one of them just flat out didn't believe me that 1 expertise got me nothing, and I had to show him my card and be like, look, it's nothing. I'm like, well, wow, what do you want me from? They're B1s. Have you seen the movies? The B1s, their purpose is to die in droves. And likewise the blaster rifle, like, oh, good, it hits. Well, so the expertise symbol is worse than the hit symbol, because 1 expertise is 1 hit, 2 expertise is 1 hit, 3 expertise is 2 hits, and so on. So good. And bash is just, I guess you can have a hit. They don't want to be in combat. Fine. B1s, but they cost 3. And as we're going to see in a minute, that's what they're useful for. So, to rank the secondaries briefly, Magnas, I would never leave home without them. They cost 3 and they're really, very good. B2s are much better than B1s, but you can't always fit the B2s in your list, so you often end up taking the B1s. That's basically the long and the short of it. I don't think B1s are actually that bad if you manage to use them properly and set up their ideal scenario, right? But B2s are just like solid and good and have a shove on 1. Yeah. Right, some lists. So these are the first 3 lists that I've played each of these lists, right? These are the first 3 lists that I sort of would think of with Separatists. So the first list there is literally, you've got the core set, and then you want to play Seps, so you buy the core set, and you buy Dooku's box to go with it, right? I mean, look, I think now at this stage in the game, with the core set, you basically, you walk into the shop and you go, cool, I really like the core set. I like, if you like Republic, you're going to pick up the core set and Obi-Wan. If you like Seps, you're going to pick up the core set and Dooku. And if you like Mandalorians, you can actually pick up the core set. Now you pick up the core set and the Mandalorians box, and then you can run all the Mandalorians that you have and Maul, and it's a great list as well, right? So there's 3 really cracking lists that you can make now from the core set plus a box, which I think is pretty cool. Slight side tangent. So I do take the view you always want Kalani, right? Kalani's nailed on. So the squad 1 is literally the core set squad plus Dooku's box, and then probably the best iteration of these 3 is the middle one. So you buy Grievous's box and you swap Asajj for Grievous because Grievous is slightly better, and then you swap Jango for Kraken because, for my personal taste, I think Kraken is what I would prefer to run within Seps. I don't think Jango is wrong. I actually think that the second iteration of this is actually a pretty marginal upgrade when all's said and done on the first iteration. And if you played that first list, I wouldn't think you were wrong, right? And then the third squad is just something else that you can do. If you want to use those B2s, you want to try them out and see what they can do, then of course you can run Grievous and Asajj together, and lets you upgrade the B1s to the B2s. And of course, with all these lists, in that 4-point, so I've got Kraken on there. If you don't want Kraken, you can run Jango instead. And if you want to mess around with Savage, go and buy the Night Sisters box and get Savage. You can stick him in that slot as well. I don't think there's an obvious best answer as to which of those three is best in that slot. I think you're definitely running Grievous, Kalani, and B1s or Magnas, right, in one squad, and I think the other squad is going to be your flex pick, as you can see on the screen. Now, Seps basically have an issue where your best primary is Dooku, your best, well, Magnas you can always take, your second best support is the B2s, and you really want Kalani, and you cannot have Dooku and B2s and Kalani in the same list. It's impossible with pure Seps, because the points don't add up, right? Okay, because Kalani's 5 and the B2s are 4, and 5 plus 4 is 9, right? So what you can do is you can take Cad Bane. Who is Cad Bane? What's Cad Bane? Cad Bane is a notorious bounty hunter, right? At this time, in this era, he's the best bounty hunter there is going, and he brings 9 squad points, which, if you take Cad, then you can basically take all your best stuff, right? It's really good. I've never tried this list. I want to try this list next. Very hilariously, I thought I came up with this list, and I was telling my last opponent at the tournament I went to, like, oh, I might try this, and these guys who's like a really experienced player, just like, yeah, Dooku, yeah, that's a thing, and I'm like, oh yeah, this game's been out for a while. It's new to me, but it's not new to the world. But this, then, it seems, will let you try out all your best stuff. Now, synergy-wise, what are we losing? Because Cad Bane doesn't have a Separatist tag. Now, I care about the lore. Not everybody does care about the lore. There are people out there running Darth Vader and Obi-Wan together, friends till the end. That's not for me. But Cad Bane seems to spend most of his working life doing jobs for Dooku anyway. So this is perfectly thematic, even though it's not mechanically one faction. Like in the story, Cad Bane works here thematically, Cad Bane works here just as well as Jango does, right? Okay. The only thing we lose with Cad is the Magnas can't move when Cad moves. That's the only bit that breaks, because most of the synergy's coming off the Battle Droid tag, and then Dooku only cares about Separatist. Like, he can't move. Just have a quick reality check. Oh, I've gone to the really professional. There's no way I'm starting this again. Dooku, for his leader of Separatist army, yeah, he also can't. Dooku can move the other primary. I literally never have done that, because they're often on opposite flanks, generally speaking. So yes, you lose that as well. But you were never really going to move your other primary with Dooku anyway. So yeah, apart from that, it works perfectly well. So it works in the lore, the fiction. It doesn't break too much, and it lets you take all your best stuff. It does become kind of tempting to run Jango instead of Kraken to get some bounty hunter synergy into the list as well. I don't know how necessary that is. Some people watching this will be like, always take Jango instead of Kraken because Jango's amazing. And they're not wrong. Jango's, I just think Kraken is also amazing. Let me know in the comments, Team Kraken or Team Jango. Thank you very much. So let's review Cad, because I've introduced this new character, so I've reviewed everything else. So let's some people have already referred to this guy as the unofficial 4th Separatist primary, so let's review him. So Cad Bane, Notorious Hunter. Cad Bane has one of my favourite abilities that I've read in the whole of Shatterpoint, right? Genuinely. He has this active ability, how about you step aside? And this is something he says in, it's one of his catchphrases, like all of these are, right? How about you step aside? So you pay a force. Choose an enemy character within 3 of an active objective that it is contesting. No, choose an enemy character within 3 of Cad and an active objective that it's contesting. The chosen character may dash away from the objective. So if it wants to, it can dash away from the objective. Then after any moves are resolved, if the chosen character is no longer contesting the chosen objective, it gains disarm. If the chosen character is still contesting the objective, it gains expose and strain. This is really thematic, right? This is literally Cad Bane saying, I want that. I'm just going to give you the chance to walk away, right? So if they walk away, they're disarmed, so they're not going to become a massive threat to Cad on his next activation. And, of course, there's nothing stopping you attacking them anyway if that's what you want to do, right? Or they say, no, I'm going to stay here, I'm going to defend this, but then they're so intimidated they get exposed and strain. I think it's a really cool thematic ability. Now, no choice is great for your opponent. I'm sure there are experienced players that have wargamed this and thought, well, this is what I do. If Cad does this, this is what I do. But I think it's cool. He's got rocket boots, so he's like many of the things we looked at. He can spend a force to do a jump, which is fine. Not bad. Always nice to see it, right? He's got no one gets between me and my job for a force. After another allied unit makes a combat action, so this is anyone on the board, right? If this unit is not engaged, it may use this ability. Choose one of the targeted characters within 4. One character in this unit deals 2 damage to the chosen character. If none of the target characters are within 4, each character in this unit may jump towards one of the target characters. So literally, anytime anything on your team attacks, you can spend a force to jump Cad. That's absurd. That it makes him incredibly mobile, right? And that means that and it has to be towards that character, so it can't just be, I jump over there onto this other irrelevant point, right? But still, it's really good. Or you can throw in 2 damage, which is also nice, and might finish it off. You never know. I'll take on any job for the right price is that his identity. So and what I love about this is, like Dooku, this is just a global thing that's in effect. When an allied character wounds an enemy unit, after the effect is resolved, refresh force. And one character in this unit may heal, so Cad can heal and you get a free force. Then, if it was a bounty hunter that did the wound, you can refresh a second force. So, obviously, if you're taking in bounty hunters as your tag that you're synergizing off, it does get that advantage of being able to refresh 2 force. Is that enough that you want to swap Kraken for Jango in this list just to have a second bounty hunter that could maybe get me another force? Maybe. I don't think I'm going to be hurting for force that much, right? Because, okay, yes, Cad only brings 2, but Dooku brings 4. So, and the sort of standard amount of force, I have the standard amount, which is 6, right? And I've still got the refresh 1 on Cad when any of mine wound. So whenever I wound anyone, I refresh a force. And because I got Dooku, whenever they wound a primary or secondary of mine, I refresh 2 force. So I'm going to be refreshing force just forever. I don't think I'm worried about the fact there's not enough bounty hunters. I think. Right. Now let's look at his stances, because his stances are complicated. I think needs no introduction on the left of the screen is the better stance. So he's got his extra dice at range. He's a ranged character. He doesn't want to be in melee, right? So he's got his extra dice at ranged, right? So 8 dice, which is really good. Okay. He's got his jump on 2, which is pretty cool. a shove on 3. Whereas on as long as I get paid, you just got damage, 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 and a pin, which is and a disarm, which is far less interesting. So again, it's that thing of working out that your 3 is kind of what you're hopeful for, and he's got really useful stuff on 3. So a jump or a heal and then a push is better than just a pile of damage and a pin most of the time. Now, yes, your blaster pistols actually get slightly better, and as long as I get paid, in so much on that one, 2 to 3 is 2 crits rather than a crit and a hit. Your flamethrowers also get much better in as long as I get paid, but that's your close combat weapon. We don't really care about that. And the defense is exactly the same. You do have a point less melee defense as well. So as long as I get paid, I think he's basically should be understood as his melee side, and he doesn't want to be in melee. Now there is a problem I have noticed with Cad, because he doesn't want to be in melee. If you're within 3 of a point, and then you halve out, you step aside, one thing your opponent might choose to do, which I think is possibly the right choice, is dash towards you to gain you to put you in engagement range, so that you have to melee them rather than shoot them because you're worse at melee. But because you can flip your card, like I would live in needs no introduction most of the time, and the only time I'm going to flip into as long as I get paid is going to be in that scenario where I've given you a free dash from how about you step aside, you've used it to go into my engagement range, so before I swing, I go, okay, I flip into as long as I get paid, and now I'm getting a crit on 1, expertise for my flamethrowers, 2 crits on 2. But I think most of the rest of the time, you're living in needs no introduction, is my feeling. Never played Cad, planning to play him, just trying to think it through as I go. So I think he's a good choice. I actually think genuinely, it doesn't feel like a sacrifice to bring him instead of Grievous or Ventress. Like I don't feel like I'm missing much. Like I don't feel like I'm taking this guy to get these extra squad points, but he's like a weaker. Like it should logically work that way, shouldn't it? It should be like, oh, I'm taking this guy with more squad points, so obviously he's weaker, but it makes up for it. I think this is just an upgrade for everyone. I could be wrong. Maybe you don't rate Cad, but like the game's not. It's not really about killing it, and I think he has good. I don't know. That expertise from how about you step expose from how about you step aside is pretty cool to me, right? So I want to talk briefly about mission packs. I do not want to have a deep dive on like the 3 mission packs. That could be a video I do another day. I have now been talking for over 90 minutes. I don't have time to review all the mission packs here, therefore. But so of the 3 missions, so at the time of recording, there are 3 mission packs that you can buy in the UK. Okay, Shifting Priorities that comes in the core box, Sabotage Showdown, and Don't Tell Me the Odds. This could be misguided, and again, if you're a Shatterpoint expert, let me know in the comments. I have come to the conclusion that every team in the game finds Sabotage Showdown easier than Shifting Priorities. That doesn't mean that you should always pick it, and indeed, I don't think Separatists should pick Sabotage Showdown, because even though it is easier for everyone, it's more easier for people that aren't Separatists, especially Republic, right? Republic love it, therefore why do you want to... The best way I have of phrasing this is if you're gonna find if you find shifting if it's the Separatist player, Shifting Priorities is like a 7 out of 10 mission, and for the Republic player it's a 4 out of 10 mission, and then for Sabotage for the Separatist player it's like an 8 out of 10 mission, but for the Republic player it becomes a 9 out of 10 mission. Right? Yes, it's easier for you than Shifting, but it's so much easier for other kind of lists that I think you want to stick on Shifting and not do Sabotage. Never Tell Me the Odds. I've never actually played Never Tell Me the Odds. Never Tell Me the Odds is interesting because it relies on you having spare force to spend, which you do, but certainly this list isn't the most killy list ever. Not that it can't kill things, but Never Tell Me the Odds central conceit is that if you wound somebody with, like, it will nominate depending on the struggle. Like, when you wound someone with a primary, you can spend a force to do this. When you wound someone with a secondary, you can spend a force to do this. It doesn't sing to me as a thing that I want to be trying to do. Now, the new mission pack, which is fully spoiled on the AMG website but isn't available to purchase in the UK yet, First Contact, does look like it might be quite nice for Separatists. It's one I want to pick up and practice with. And again, let me know your thoughts in the comments, right? So, Premiere. I'm going to a Premiere event in early May. What the dickens is Premiere, I hear you cry. Those of you that are still watching it, 1 hour and 35 minutes, probably know full well what Premiere is, but let's entertain the conceit anyway. I'll read from the rules pack, shall I? That's great content. During a Premier Showdown event, players do not submit a single strike team as normal. Instead, players submit a Premier list of 4 separate squads and 1 mission set they use to build their strike team at the start of each game. Each squad must meet the normal squad building restrictions as detailed in the Shatterpoint core book, blah 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 blah, and then when they build their Premier list, they can't include a unit that shares the same unique name or unit name with another unit already in the Premier list, must apply all special rules, blah blah blah. At the start of the round, before determining the first player, each player builds a strike team by selecting 2 of the squads they brought to the event along with their chosen mission set, and you build your order decks in secret and then simultaneously reveal their entire order deck to their opponents. During a Premier Showdown event, players must choose each of their squads to be included in their strike team during at least one of the Swiss rounds of the event. So, 4 squads, gotta use them all during the event, 1 mission pack. You have to decide what your team is based on your opponent's set of 4 teams and their mission pack, but you don't know what they're picking or which mission you're going to play. Whether or not you have sight of the terrain when you decide your strike team seems to vary. I think strictly rules of written you shouldn't, but I'm willing to bet that in most tournaments you do. Right. So, Premier is really fun because it forces you to use, like, I like narratively and the character fullness of all the Separatists that I've gone through, so I would like to be able to have a reason to play with them all, and this forces me to do that. It forces you to use more of your models than just the 2 squads that you've identified as being the ones that you prefer the most. Now, there are a couple of approaches to Premier, right? So you can do 2+2, which is where you effectively create 2, they could be totally separate lists. You could have, like, Moff Gideon and Iden Verso Empire list as one thing, and then like Hunter and Obi-Wan Kenobi from the New Republic as the other thing, and it'd be very clear to everybody looking at your thing like what your 2 lists were, and so in at least one of your games you'd have to play the list you preferred less or whatever it was, and that's one way of doing it. Now, that's cool in so much as it means that you don't have to do any suboptimal stuff. Like, you will see, for example, when I show you my Premier list, that I've not been able to recreate the Cad Bane Count Dooku list that I'm planning to take to a non-Premier event. It doesn't, those 2 squads don't feature as 2 of the squads. Neither of those squads feature, right? So, with 2+2, I could take that exact list that I like, and then another exact list from somewhere else that didn't use any of the same units. The only problem with that is, first of all, you have to buy more models than necessarily, like, I want to try and just focus into quite narrowly. But secondly, you have to take the same mission pack. So whilst I was saying, like I was saying, I think Separatists do better on shifting. I think that Republic do better on sabotage. So if you were taking a Republic list and a Separatist list, one of them's going to have to learn a mission pack. It isn't the strongest for it. Whereas if you build a thing where everything wants the same, now can you build 2 different discrete lists that don't have any overlap but happen to like the same of 3 missions? Probably. right? But it's worth bearing in mind. Another approach, which is the one that I've used, is that you have an anchor. So in other words, of your 4 squads, you have 1 squad that you plan to use in every single game, and then you can rotate around the other 3 squads. If it's a 4-round tournament, use each squad once, and then use your favourite one twice. Okay? And finally, you can try and do a thing where you just have 4 squads, and they all synergize with each other in different combinations, and there isn't really an anchor list. So this is the Premier list that I've come up with, right? And the basic idea is that Squad 1 is taken in every single game. So you've always got Grievous, you've always got Kalani, and you've always got the Magnaguard. I think Kalani's mantra, it's funny because Grievous on this list, Grievous is probably, I've not played with Cad yet, but Grievous is probably my 3rd favourite primary of the 4 of them. And yet he's the one I'm committing to using in every single game. Not because I dislike the other, like, I don't dislike Grievous, that's why I'm happy to think of it this way, but because the others have, I think Dooku and Cad have, with the conceit being that I want to use all the Separatist cards, therefore I'm using all 4 Separatist primaries, the Separatist secondaries, therefore I think that Jango wants to be in the squad with Cad for the bounty hunter thing, and Asajj wants to be in the squad with Dooku because I think they just work the best together, right? That's my feeling about that. So then it's a case of fitting the other things around them, okay? I could put the Magnas with Dooku and the B1s with Grievous, but I'd rather take the Magnas in every single game, so I'll put them there. I want to take Kalani in every single game, so I'll put him there. I prefer Grievous to Ventress, so he goes there. Asajj can have the B2s and Kraken, right? She doesn't have any special synergy with them, but they are a strong pair of units. And then Cad picks up another out-of-faction choice, the Bounty Hunters. And again, that means that in his squad, they're both Bounty Hunters, so the Force Refresh thing, at least everybody in his squad will be doing 2 Force Refresh when they wound anything. And then of this, I would be specifically looking for to take Squad 3 when my opponent said they were taking Never Tell Me the Odds. Or when that was one of the options, so it's 50-50 that we might have to play Never Tell Me the Odds. Because I think having a really killy secondary is useful on that, and having loads of extra force, which Dooku is one of the main ways in which you make sure you have loads of force. Because actually, the Grievous Asajj list isn't always a wash with force, right? Other than that, I don't know what would lead me to choose which of the other 2 squads I was pairing with what. I think certainly Cad and Jango are very mobile, so if it was me with shifting and the opponent also had shifting, I might do the Cad, the Jango, and then Asajj. If I see my opponent's got sabotage, I guess. Something like that, right? So again, that's what I've got so far. If you've got any comments, thoughts, suggestions, things I should definitely change in the swap, or approaches I should definitely have, I will accept all help in the comments section, absolutely. I will just do a quick review of Bounty Hunters, because I haven't reviewed enough units in this video, and I just introduced them to the thing. So these are the Bounty Hunters, these are the other like separatist things that I'm including in my list. And the Bounty Hunters are really unique in Shatterpoint in that they are AMG OC, right? In terms of not the droid, the little droid isn't a named character, but in terms of the other 2 characters, their race is an established race, but they are not anyone in particular that we've seen in Star Wars. These guys are just supposed to represent bounty hunters in concept, which is quite cool. So on the trail, at the start of this unit's activation, they can dash towards an enemy character. So it has to be towards an enemy character. On the other hand, it's free, so that's nice, right? Tools of the trade, spend a force, and then you can either give an enemy within 3 disarm, which is fine, or you can have sharpshooter and impact 2. So this means that when you focus and get an extra dice. Sharpshooter 2 means that when you focus and then you're shooting, you get 3 extra dice net. And Impact 2 means when you focus and you do close combat, you get 3 extra dice net, which is amazing. I've been talking for too long. Bear with me. It's important to hydrate, boys and girls. Okay. So that's pretty cool as well. Although, how often do you have the action to burn? How often do you get to activate somebody and you don't need to move? I tend to find quite often I need to move and attack. But hey, it's cool. They do have range 5 on their guns, so it's cool. They may have a situation where they can just activate, focus, and attack, which isn't something I often do, but if it's 3 extra dice, yeah, I'm going to find a way to do it. Then they got Payday. So Payday, you pay a focus. After you reveal an order card, this unit may use the ability. If it does, this unit gains a tag of your choice until the end of the turn. So this is why they will synergize with any other list. So what this means is that if I flip Kalani, I can say, right, I'm going to spend 1 for Payday on the bounty hunters to make them battle droids, and then Kalani can give them all a free dash. Right, now I won't be able to keep that up every single turn for the purposes of concentrate firepower on Kalani's card, which, would get a bit too expensive. Although maybe if I'm regenerating enough force from Cad, it might be a thing. But like, certainly sometimes they can count. Some of the times they can count as battle droids. Is it ideal? Would I rather have a 4th battle droid support unit instead of having to take bounty hunters? Yes. But it's cool that you can take them and kind of plug a gap. Damage-wise, you only got to push on 1 or 2 damage, but you got to push on 1 and damage a pin and then a push again. They're pretty similar to the B2s, right? They can gain extra dice pretty similarly to the B2s. They've got push early on. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then their defensive tree is pretty okay. Their weapon expertise is not right, but 2 crit and the damage is alright. It's not the worst thing. And the bounty hunters are pretty cool. Like, would I choose them over a 4th in faction melee unit? A 4th in faction support? Probably not, but I don't have one, and this is the best thing to plug that gap with. There you go. Now, a 4th in faction support is coming. They previewed this ages ago at Mini Stravaganza, that they're going to do Rift. He looks amazing. Like Rift Thompson, Sharkman himself, with the 2 Aqua Droids, and then the guy whose name I can't remember, the guy that sells out all of the other ones to the Separatists. I found out today these have been pushed back to July. Apparently, I think this picture at the top here is from Gamma. So that's sad. I was hoping we'd start to see rule spoilers at Adepticon later this month. We still might. It's possible. And I had a hope that these would be out in time for my premiere event in May, and I'd get to include them in my list, but it's not going to happen. But still, these are fun. It's fun to speculate. I'm wondering if they're going to be a 5-point support with a 3-point secondary. I've got no evidence for that other than the big beefy guys. And the little evil traitor guy probably isn't that inspiring. But maybe Games Workshop take it a different way. Games Workshop? Maybe AMG take it a different way. Gosh. But yeah, I just thought I'd throw that in there at the end. For mainly in case people watch this video in a year and go, oh, you didn't talk about Terror from Below. Rift Hampson is much better than General Grievous. Like, this was made at a certain point in time. Thank you very much. Final thoughts. I hope you've enjoyed making this as much as I have. I know it's been a marathon, not a sprint. Okay, 1 hour and 48. That's good. I might do this again for other tags, although I am less knowledgeable about them. And also, there are 4 big tags. I think Separatists are the smallest of the 4 big tags. I think if I was doing a video like this for Empire or Republic, it will be a long video. But I might do some of the smaller tags. I might do a deep dive on the Darnathians or the Bounty Hunters or one of the other tags that I'm actually interested in, and also has only a handful of units. That might be quite fun. I'm not going to stop doing faction reviews for Kill Team and other things like that as well. Don't worry if you're a long time subscriber of the channel and you're like, why is there so much Shatterpoint? Because I'm hype on it, and you've got to make content about what you're really, really into. Otherwise, it feels like a chore. But at the same time, I've not stopped liking KT. If you have any suggestions or things that I've said that are really stupid, and you're going to be like, no, actually, Asajj Ventress is the coolest character in the world, you moron, you're just using her wrong. Very possible. Very possible. Okay? It's very possible that I've made some heinous errors. Please, please, let them know. I'll give you a pin and tell everybody how awesome you are. Right, it is approximately 58 minutes past my bedtime because I decided to make this mammoth video on a Sunday evening because I hate sleep. So do subscribe, comment, like, etc. Consider joining the Discord, and a big thank you to all my members who financially support me in a really important way every single month. Details in the join channel button. Thank you so much. Bye bye, bye bye, cheery bye, bye bye, bye bye bye.